There we go. All right, there we go. I knew I was a little rusty for a quick moment. I realized that we actually didn't do the afternoon meeting on our YouTube or Facebook streams while I was away. I apologize on that. And I just realized I was muted for the last couple of seconds on YouTube and Facebook Live. So now I'm good to go. Good to go, folks. But with that in mind, we got a busy afternoon. I got to go quick because we have the phase one stock course lined up this afternoon, talking all about order types, market versus limit. We actually talked about that earlier in the pre-market movers masterclass if you're a part of that as well. So I know that Rich just posted the link in the chat board just now for all of our gold, platinum, diamond C2 students. So we got to go through things quick. I do got to jump to Bitcoin, of course. Trust me, I didn't leave because Bitcoin was tanking. But I think the second I left to go on my vacation, right from that point, Bitcoin tanked. So I don't think he was happy that I left. But great to be back. Hopefully we'll get a nice squeeze up on Bitcoin, and we'll talk about that at the end of this meeting. But for right now, the MPLN stock to begin, it's on the screen, and otherwise we'll just go right from top to bottom after. We're going to put this on our watch list. Stock ended up making a really nice move across the whole day. It wasn't one that was on our, morning or, call out list throughout the day, but it was to say at least this thing just kept breaking higher, and by 12 o'clock in the afternoon, once it broke above 450, from that point it really caught our attention. So from there it still pushed up pretty nicely upwards towards the high of 488. The reason I'm actually more keen to put this on our list, I do like, the fact that it's still pretty close to its highs, pulled back a bit, but if it doesn't break higher, well, actually, this stock is shortable. So, God forbid if this doesn't make a lower or a higher low and pushes back up to resistance off of 5, if it ends up breaking support, showing a lot of selling weakness from that trend up, then I would say that that could be a pretty good opportunity to try and short. So, either way, the MPLN stock to begin, we'll put on our main list. All right. Now we'll go right from top to bottom. Otherwise, we'll see what else can join the MPLN. Meant to click the LGVN stock first. So LGVN, this one actually was breaking all-time highs right before 2 p.m. Eastern here. It exploded above resistance of 1475. That was just the high back from Friday last week while I was away. So, seemingly enough, this was building a really steady trend off the lows, albeit pretty choppy move in its own right, minute by minute. But across the day, after this broke higher, it kept building this trend across the afternoon. So even here, it built a new trend off these lows. And then once it broke the all-time high, 1475, really wasn't much after that before this thing exploded. Actually, so much so you can kind of look back on this trend line at least now and say, wow, that was a pretty strong trend off the lows, huh? Just even looking at this. Pretty interesting, right? How it played out just now to where this came back down exactly to this trend line here and just spiked up. So really good sign for right now. It's not Lagavulin, the Scotch whiskey, for anyone that is a Scotch whiskey drinker. LGVN, that was my funny name for it. But Long Everin, I don't know what the company does. Do not care. I'm just going to put it on our watch list for the meantime, at least, with this just, pushing right back up to the highs. All right, so we keep it going from there. The ISPC, we talked about this in the pre-market movers masterclass, right? For those that have access to that, we talked about this trade. I showed you my entries. I wish I could have done way better on it, but still made money. The name of the game is to make money. I took a 14-cent loss. I jumped back in, got about 34, 36 cents after. I didn't want to lean back in, although it was just pushing up so nicely. You can't just jump into a trade for the hell of it. You got to just try and wait for the stock to come back to you. Unfortunately, it didn't really do that up until like 12 o'clock anyway, right? But by the time it did that, it held support pretty nicely off the 9 level. That was a pretty big resistance going into the pre-market here. So resistance created support. Well, just kept pulling back down a bit more. So, certainly for right now, I mean, the ISPC only looks like it will continue dropping off. If it was shortable, then it would easily be on our watch list like the MPLN, but it's not. So I wouldn't bother looking at this trade now at this stage. All right, so we keep it going. Water break number 1, but Lee spotty chart. The Nubev NBEV, we saw this get called out just a moment ago. I think one of our students, Norman, picked up like 2 or 3 cents on it. Ended up pushing up nicely towards 147. Yes, resistance at 150, 77,000 share order on the ask. So that definitely is your major top to work off of for right now. Certainly we'll put this on our list in hopes of it breaking higher. Stock is like watching the grass grow otherwise, though. So, if it does push up, hopefully it will make a better move than even what you're seeing here. All right, the RAAS stock, I think for my own, I think for job security reasons, we'll put this right back on the watch list for the afternoon. I'd say that more in jest than anything. Fausto called this out really quickly after the market opened up. I don't think it made the pre-market or the morning list, but hey, as soon as the market opened up, he was the one that called out the pop, the slingshot from 330, 335, and moved up really nice at first. Ended up pushing up towards just about 4, ended up sneakily pushing up higher across the late morning, the early afternoon. The reason I do actually like it right now, it's trading about 20 or so thousand shares per minute. That's at least over the last 20 minutes on average. But it's to say the stock pulled down to 375, 380. It bounced back up about 25, 30 cents. For a $4 stock, that's a good move. So for right now, at least in relation to what it's doing across the last 30 or so minutes, why not? All right, so we keep it going. See what else we got here. Another, known name actually, the CEI trade. Unfortunately, this one didn't really offer us too much across the day. It was very active from the after hours back from Friday. It was pretty active this morning in pre-market. Usually is. That doesn't mean it's going to make for a great trade upon the market opening up. This stock's always on the top or always on the most active list. By volume. Another one, PROG, was also up there on the most active list. At least after the market opened up, this gave us a little room to see a nice slingshot. Obviously, that was very short-lived. It made a lower high, and then from there snapped right back down. But at least comparing those that were on the most active list to the most gainers, it's not always the case that you see a stock trading, hundreds and millions of shares in pre-market. It's not a guarantee it's going to be a great move for after 9:30. Just look at this. Was it tradable? Yeah. Could you picked up 3 cents on it? Yeah, I'm sure. But right now, though, it's not really worth the time. Maybe if it pops up to 150 later on, once we finish this meeting, maybe we'll reconsider at that point. All right. So the ASTR, this thing stole the show today. I mean, really outside of the, LGVN and obviously the ISPC, but ASTR, hey, it was shortable from the get-go, folks. We talked about this earlier in the morning. Of course, when the market opened up, it popped up pretty nicely, but we were looking for those lower highs. We were expecting this drop off. So from there, it took a damn long time to get going. I mean, it really broke down right when we were finishing up class. But it was to say once it rebroke below the 1250 here, and namely its opening bell print off right around I think 1220, that was it. That was it. It was a short trade right from there and still could be heading into the close. I mean, if you look at the highs that we had from last week, even to act as a potential historical support, roughly around 1074, 1083 perhaps, technically has a little room to get down there. Maybe it makes another lower high, then drops down again. I still find this stock pretty tradable either way. So for right now, the ASTR, I'll put this on our list. It'll actually be kind of number 3 so far, like the MPLN, my Lagavulin whiskey. It's not that, but after those two, the ASTR I think is next best. GOEV was on a nice run today. Yeah, look at this. This pushing right back up. So if anything, this GOEV definitely put near the top right now too. Actually, I'm going to put this right at the very top, just pushing up here to the high of the day. Stock that trades a lot of liquidity on a day-to-day basis. Today, it's trading about 17 plus million shares. Even prior to what we had last week while I was away, even prior to those days, stock was trading about 3.2 million shares a day on average. That makes it pretty damn tradable by our standards inside Cyber Group. So, obviously with this at the highs of the day right now, how can we not? But at a minimum, this has been a sideless stock at least. All right, so we keep it going. AEVA just broke a new high now. It's got thinner volume on the book. It did pull back a bit. Maybe I'll come back to that if I need to at the end. It looks interesting at least. All right, so we keep it going across the gainer side. Otherwise, number 50 is up 9+%. Of course, the market had a pretty nice day, at least from the market open. Really took a hit going into the early afternoon and has recovered from that point. So, whether we have a pretty flat market heading into the close or not, I mean, I still feel like there's a lot of stocks that are up percentage-wise that we may have missed. BTU, talk about flat. All right, we'll come back to anything else on the gainers list if it looks pretty good, folks. Last one I'll check out here just because it's one that's a familiar name for me, RLX. That's flat. All right, so we're gonna move over to the losers list. Again, if there's anything that's up that looks good, that's trending back on up, then let me know in the chat board. But for right now, we'll see what we have on this side of the field. The AUPH down over 29% shortable. So I like all of that. It is dropping back down, towards 20. Ended up essentially holding underneath 2040. I would assume iceberg at 2050. So for right now, still tradable, right? It's near the lows, much closer to the lows right now than it is to the highs. So if we put a stock on the gainers list on our list that's near the highs, it's hard for us to not put a stock on the losers list on our watch list that's near the lows, right? All right, so we keep it going though. Otherwise, STRN, not a whole lot happening there. Just looking at some stocks that are easy to borrow on my platform. I don't really see many other familiar names that look like notable, worthy, at least on the loser side. I'm kind of just skimming. So again, if there's anything on the losers list that looks pretty good, folks, that I didn't really check out just yet, type it in the chat board. I mean, you could even say, furthermore, what I'd said on the gainers list about the losers. I mean, number 50 is down 13%. So there could be a lot more that technically is on the loser side of things that's down 10%, 12%, 9% that didn't really see. So as I check back to the trading room right now, I got a couple of us talking about the G-Tech trade, to which Mitch Connor on YouTube wrote that in already. I appreciate all of the shouts on that stock. So yeah, G-Tech we were calling out a little bit earlier too. I know that Rich was talking about this inside the trading room prior to 2:30 at least. So I'm happy that I came to this. I guess this was like screaming up the gainers list as I was going from top to bottom. Otherwise, actually, shoot, it's only up like 6 to 7 to 8%. So very good call. Wouldn't have found this really here. Oftentimes we find stocks, trending up, climbing up the gainers list as we go from top to bottom. Would not have found this, at least just yet. Haven't. So yeah, great call. G-Tech. All right, and from Doug, the AUPH from earlier, Doug Cherry on YouTube. So I appreciate that from Doug. And yeah, that looks all right for right now. This won't be on the top of our list like the G-Tech trade will now at this point, or GOEV or MPLN, the others. But AUPH definitely will put a little spotlight on and seeing if this could break down below 20 again. All right. I'll tell you what, folks. I think Bitcoin's like a clingy girlfriend, because the second that I stepped away, boy, was Bitcoin pissed. Because man, I'll tell you, looking at the 6-hour chart here, this vertical line represents practically when I did the afternoon meeting back Monday last week. The second I finished up, this thing was completely tanking afterwards. So, I want to go over a couple of things. First, this ended up dropping off a hell of a lot more than I was expecting it to. That's first things first. I was actually in a bit of a leveraged futures position before I left. I had to close it out, and I took a small hit. Or not even small. I took a hit. I didn't get crushed, thank God, but I took a hit. It sucks. And if I kept my position leveraged, I would have been down way more. So, it happens. Now, though, to say this, right before I left, and you can go back on our afternoon stream on YouTube. Actually, before I left, I recorded that one. And I was saying at the time on this 6-hour graph, watch out for the 200 EMA. On this exact 6-hour graph, I was saying at this stage, it's not really looking that great. If it ends up beginning to break down below that 63.7 line or so that we've been harping on for so long, then it wouldn't shock me over time to see it come down to the 200. I was saying, hey, if you kind of have to prepare for the worst in these situations, or, prepare for the other side of the situation. I'm so bullish, and I still am, but that doesn't mean that we can't, or that we shouldn't think about what happens if it goes the other way. Well, seeing it drop down to the 200 EMA, because of my expectation there before I left, I wasn't that worried at the time. But holy crap, guys, when this just kept breaking down more and more, heading into the 18th, into the 19th, trust me, I was in Florida in a nice hot tub, nice pool outside. I was not really that relaxed. So, it's just to say at this point, I ended up buying a little bit more over the last couple of days, right around 58. I'm content with that entry. But here's the part that's kind of making me worry a bit. And this happened over the last really just couple of hours. This is a 6-hour chart. So this bar started today at 1 p.m. Like just an hour and a half ago, the next 6-hour bar began. All right, so that means that on this one, is what we were working with from overnight into this morning, going into the early afternoon. Well, it did push up a little bit. Bitcoin was pushing back up, back up, back up, moved pretty much right up to the 200 EMA on my 6-hour graph. I mean, it popped a little bit above it. Not only did it, of course, come back down, it closed below my next line that I had here from my chart, a horizontal line I had there roughly off at 58,000 or so. It closed below that, and that's not a good sign. So I'm not surprised to see Bitcoin drop off a little bit more across the last, 45 minutes, last hour and a half or so. This is what we've been kind of dealing with, over the last couple of hours. So it's to say this, I'm expecting more of a drop. At this point now, I am expecting more of a drop. So where should we get that drop down to? Well, let's pull up the 500 EMA on my 6-hour graph. For anyone new joining our streams, I do this Bitcoin analysis Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I don't really predict what Bitcoin's going to do. We try and react as we go. That's all. But it is to say, at least, if it's going to close and then continue to drop on the 6-hour graph below the 200, below my horizontal line I had, why not think that it can drop down towards my 500 EMA right around 53? That would, fairly coincide well. And I drew this just before I started the meeting, but this white trend line I drew pretty recently today. And it's to say, at least, at least looking at a straight trend line touching the lows back from 2020 and here, it wouldn't shock me if we happen to see this come back down a little bit more at this stage. Should that happen? I'll be one of the first to buy. That's for sure. But at this stage now, I'm not going to buy any more, at least just yet. I'll let you know when I do. Lewis says, to be honest, I set my next entry position at around 50,000-ish once it started breaking down. Well, so far that's been paying off for you, Lewis. And yeah, for right now, I'm going to sit on my hands at least until we see a little bit more clarity. If it can get back over my 60,000 line here and make a higher low, maybe I'll add more at that point. If it keeps dropping, though, then I'd kind of wait towards the 500 here, maybe this straight trend line perhaps, which was holding pretty nicely. So those are all just, thoughts that you can kind of use going into the next week or so. That's it. But obviously, it wasn't a true vacation with seeing Bitcoin drop off as much as it did. So I was a little stressed out and took a little bit of a hit. But we live, we learn. I'm breathing air. I'm fine health wise. I'm fine financially. Took a small hit, but here we are. We're doing all right. Get right back up on the horse. Hopefully, we find a good entry point again right around here over time. Or otherwise, if it makes a higher low, wouldn't mind trying to check this back out again if it can get back over 60. All right, AUPH pulling back down to the 20, so that is the reason why we put that on our watch list, at least for the afternoon. From RJF, calling out the ISPC trade again. You're looking for that second win type of move, and we rarely look for that here at this time of the day. So given the volatility, given how much it had moved up, if it does make a second win type of move, maybe you can get $1 out of it. If so, then, kudos. But for right now, the majority of this move's done with. It's not really going to be as good as it was to us, at least in pre-market. All right, folks, but I think that just about wraps it up for me here. Time is 2:50. We got about 15 minutes until phase one continues for all of our students live inside Cyber Group. I know that Rich posts the link in the chat board there, so make sure that you click that link just so you can get early access. Make sure that you're all squared away on the tech end of things. I'm about to do that myself. And then for all of us on social media, Facebook Live, YouTube, I know that we're not able to stream our afternoon meetings on YouTube, Facebook Live over the last week, but we are back, and I'm back in my normal seat. So we're going to be good to go across the board. If you have any questions, feel more than free to send over an email right to my email address. Typed it in there on the stream. Josh@ctutrading.com. Some things don't change, and neither does my stutter at the end of this meeting. Doing a lot of talking today. So I appreciate you folks bearing with me here. RGF says he'll take $1 move. I would too, especially if it could break back over 9 coming up here. But for right now, though, I think that there are other stocks that are more notable so far. But, hey, we'll see where the road takes us here across the next hour. All right, folks, I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.